3, 2, 1.
Good evening, and welcome to another special midweek episode of the Bob and Kevin Show. I'm Bob, and that solid 4.5 gentleman below me on the screen whose birthday is today, well, that's Kevin. And we're talking Black Mirror Season 3, Episode 1, Nosedive. Are we almost there already? Have we always been there just without the tech? Anywho, it's Wednesday, March 21st, and tonight we're just looking to get a 5-star rating from everyone that listens. So let's get started. How's it going, Kevin?
Awesome. It is going
Happy birthday.
Great. Why, thank you. The odometer clicked over one more time. We are at the big 4-decade mark.
You totally get a 5-star rating for me on your birthday.
Awesome. And you get one for giving me a 5-star rating and telling me happy birthday. So appreciate it.
All right. So that was pretty bogus, fake 5-star rating shit right there. And that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. This is an episode of Black Mirror, and it was at the beginning of their 3rd season, and I thought it was an amazing episode. I am quite a social media junkie and have been for quite some time. I'm fascinated by the tech of it, and so this episode was just like everything I could have wanted. And it's pretty socially redeeming at the end, I think. But before we get to that, what in this episode stood out for you, Kevin?
Well, this was actually my introduction to Black Mirror. So the entire series, I saw it and I'm like, hey, let me try this, and didn't know anything about it. And this was the first episode that I watched, and I was like, holy shit, this is deep. This is dark, and it's deep. So, yeah.
I think some of that makes it dark, and I kind of alluded this to the intro, we're already here for the most part. Like, people run around all day, every day, worried about their likes, their follows, their retweets, everything associated with social media. Now, the crazy thing is that we don't have a single solitary ranking system, but some of these people who live in Instagram all day, I mean, that's their 5-star rating system right there.
Yeah. Facebook's in the news right now for collecting data and whatnot, and having all kinds of what to do with this data. Obviously, if you've seen this episode, it turns dark, and how this is just kind of like, gosh, how do you apply, rating somebody back and forth? And to your point, we have this society of where I got to mention, I got to go look. Oh, I got this. So recently, I've uninstalled Facebook off my phone. So if you want to Facebook with me, you're going to have to catch me in front of a computer browser, and I'm going to have Facebook open, which almost never happens anymore. Twitter, I disabled the automatic notifications, so I will only see your mention if I'm actively looking for it on my phone, or I'm sitting by the browser and happens to have it open. However, I do have the browser open typically on Twitter during the day. And then Instagram is the other one that should be called Instacracker. I'm sure there's something, some word there, because I'm always, hey, cool, who's looking at my cartoons, who's following me, because I'm trying to build that. So yeah, it's very addictive.
So one of the things that really caught my attention in rewatching this episode, that elevator scene that was just probably about a minute ago when we were kind of scrolling through here, the fact that you'd mentioned Facebook and data and that whole thing that's in the news, in their social interaction in the elevator, they weren't making eye contact with each other. They were using the implants in their eyeballs, their, I guess, special contacts, their heads-up displays, to quickly scan information from each other's social media to then engage in conversation only about the data that they discovered from their feeds. And I thought that was pretty crazy.
What's also kind of crazy, and I think we all kind of suffer from it, social media follower credibility. So if somebody were to tweet at you, if it's positive or negative, you may form an initial reaction. And then you form a second reaction, I think, by going to their profile and go, who the hell are you to tell me, wow, you've got 100,000 followers. Oh, shit.
And that's a big backbone of this episode. So in the pre-show, you had mentioned that Naomi was a total bitch. So
guilty.
Expand upon that, please.
Well,
why is she a bitch?
Oh man, put me on the spot. I just think, just the way it's the elitism. I think that that gets me the most. She's in the what's the club called? It's been a while since I've actually watched this episode.
Oh, she just it really boils down to they call them quality people.
Yeah, but they're not really quality people, right?
Right.
I would say once you get into the 4 and higher club, you turn into this elitist person where, oh well, you're not us.
Well, do you feel like that Naomi was using Lacey?
Lacey being the main
Lacey's
character,
the
right?
main character.
Okay.
Yeah, Lacey's drinking the smoothie right now.
I mean, I think people use people in general. I mean,
Right. But in this
so
episode in particular, I think they set it up where you want to feel like Naomi is the bitch because,
okay.
Naomi's kind of stringing Lacey along. But really, at the end of the day, Lacey's using Naomi's status to try to get her apartment.
That's true. That is absolutely true. So do you think we have something like this in society already where we have this elites like the blue check marks on Twitter?
The blue check marks. Think about it. So a couple of themes in this episode is the higher your social ranking was, the higher your star rating was, you had certain benefits. She got a 20% discount on her apartment if she reached a 4.5, I think is what the threshold was. And the rental car, you could have access to better cars if you had a higher star rating. So there's all this classing that's going on based on your star rating. And we totally there's benefits that open up to every one of the social media platforms for more followers that you have.
So Lee Messenger from across the pond in more ways than one, he sent me a link about how this episode is actually playing out in real life over in China, where if you have a certain rating that's low, you can only get a economy class ticket on a train. You may not even be allowed to take public transportation. Have you read anything about those sorts of things?
No, I have not, and that kind of freaks me out. But my question is how is that ranking determined? Is it similar to this episode? Is it based on interactions?
Full disclosure, I don't know the details of it, so I don't want to, spread information without backing it up. But he sent me an article, which I totally just tried to find, and I couldn't find it right now. But it's a thing we can probably Google here.
Interns, get on it.
Yes.
Well, another question that I have is we have this already with Yelp. We're basically 5-star rating businesses and restaurants, and we've been doing it for a very long time. It just seems like it's only a matter of moments, really, in the grand scheme of things, till we are measuring people that way as well.
Yeah, so I think it's called social credit.
Oh God, it's right out of the episode. It's called social credit in the episode too.
And this is 5 days ago on The Verge, and so yeah, it's a thing. If we read this real quick here, being banned from buying train tickets for up to a year, social credit system. There's all kinds of interesting manifestations on how this is becoming a real thing.
Can you go back for a second? Because It actually said rated based on factors like, right, where you clicked on, okay, Chinese government rates citizens based on things like criminal behavior, financial misdeeds, but also what they buy, say, and do.
So some of that makes sense if you're a criminal, a felon. Here in the good old U.S. of A, that becomes a thing, right, where you can't vote, and so I mean, there's some of that. But the problem I think people would have is China also is kind of a not so good on the whole human rights thing. And I'm pretty sure, the free speech thing, if you speak your mind, are you going to take a hit on your social credit?
It said buy, say, and do. Yeah, so that's not good.
It is not good. But that's actually a good possible segue here because that's not the only thing in our society that has attempted this before. Have you seen this before? This is the People app available on iOS.
Only because you keep teasing me with it. I've not even considered looking it up. It's only got 1.5 stars, for God's sakes.
Yeah. So the initial premise to this was basically rate anyone and tell us what you really think about everyone, and get my facts here from Wikipedia. So fact checkers, if you got better sourcing, let me know. But long story short, it received a ton of backlash, and it got watered down to the point where you had to opt in order to get rated, and somebody could give you a negative rating, and you could just basically bury it and say, well, don't make this public. So if somebody gives you a negative rating, you could just, so it makes this app quite pointless. So they had to backtrack on it big time. However, there is a more successful version of this. And do you want to guess the name of it?
Facebook.
You lie. You already knew the answer. It was Uber, or it is Uber, the star rating, where it's a two-way rating system.
Yes.
So have you been rated before by a driver?
You know what? In true Bob fashion, I don't know if I have been rated. Let me go ahead and pull up my Uber app and see what it says.
Does it say right on there?
I'm pretty sure if you go to your profile, it's going to tell you if you've been rated or not.
Man, now I'm going to have
I'm pulling up Uber. Hang on, loading.
This is what we call dead air in the radio biz. Now, I have no idea what they call it.
I have a 5-star rating, so that doesn't mean, I don't know if that means that I've been rated, or maybe
everyone starts at 5. And I'm trying to look at.
Here we go. Your rating. Understand your rating. I don't. Doesn't say that I've been rated, so I think everybody starts at a 5. So I'm still good.
All right. I don't know where to find mine. So
if you go into your account and then hit the hamburger menu in the upper left, you're right underneath your name. It should say your rating.
I don't have a rating. I have nothing.
Ooh,
maybe it's because it's Android, or I'm off the grid. I don't know.
Maybe you haven't been rated.
So I've got rides in here for sure. I had a ride with Jessica in Denver.
I want everybody to know, for the record, that I was being very sarcastic when I said that it only had 1.5-star rating, that app, by the way. I did realize the complete irony in me being judgmental about the rating of it.
I see what happened there. So, what sort of, is there anything positive about, I mean, so I think we.
It's almost like we wrote this. That's a great segue. I was going to say, the one thing that's interesting about Black Mirror is there are certain episodes where you do start to see it take a turn. And in this episode, I really thought that it started taking a little bit more of a positive turn as Lacey's rating went down. So she became more human the farther down her rating went, and became more honest and had open dialogue. And one of the things that I wrote down is, it's so funny in social media, on these weird, pages where people have discourse. The funny thing is, they say that, you because of social media, you would never say that to my face. But as Lacey's rating went down, she became more liberated and able to say things to people's faces.
Yeah,
so I thought that was pretty positive.
The actual end of the episode ends with she gets her eyeballs implants taken out, and she doesn't have a device. And it's like we've come full circle. So she started this way. She was born this way as a child. She didn't have this. But at some point, she got her implants in her phone. Sounds familiar, except for the implants. And, she had to kind of throttle what she says online and whatnot, to a point.
Oh, yeah, because she'd get a bad rating if she spoke her mind.
And then when that was taken away, where there was no consequences left for her rating system, she basically kept dropping F-bombs at the guy at the end.
Now, of course, she was in a cage when she was doing that, but, that's Black Mirror for you.
I was reading some comments on that. Somebody was saying, it's kind of liberating, despite the fact that she was in a cage.
Right, because she was truly free, even though she was in a cage.
Exactly. So, yes, this is a great episode.
So, on a geeky nerd thing about this episode, one thing that, if you're looking at signs of the apocalypse and things like that, like how close are we to something like this really happening? The ubiquity of the devices, I think, was a huge intentional thing in this show. Like, everyone had the same device, and all the devices were interconnected with the implants in the eyes, with the ability to, just flick it to your computer monitor. But everyone had that same pinkish presentation on their screen and same device.
I find that, I'm guilty of this, so I'm not pointing fingers. And if I were, they would be aimed right at me, very Bill Clinton style, or however the great ones do it. So everyone's doing the whole walking and doing this. Just please don't get me run over by a car. I think we're already there.
Oh,
So,
we're totally at that part of the show for sure.
all right. So, would you agree that Uber's rating system isn't horrendous? It seems to be working, the two-way thing, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's totally it's that one step closer to it being just people based, like I talked about, with Yelp and things like that. But this does go bi-directional, and that does frighten me.
So, according to Uber, the reason that they are doing a two-way system is because what happens if your ratings fall too low? So basically, they'll kick you off their platform. So this is limited in the scope. So, like in law, in at least American law, you can do things as long as the scope is fairly narrow. A open rating system where you can just say, you know what, that Bob guy, I'm just going to give him a rating just because. That would be the equivalent of people. And so I would say we almost have two ends of the spectrum here. We have people, it's like this, originally, it's open end. I just want to do some rating of people I don't like because. And then my friends, I'll give five. So you'll have fives and ones probably. There's no two, three, and fours. But Uber, it's kind of interesting because you can go both ways on this, and this is only limited to, well, if I just piss off the driver or enough drivers, and it's also distributed, so you have to piss off enough
Right.
drivers,
And you get bounced.
right? But now that the foot is in the door, does this mean the next app is going to also? Now I don't ever see Facebook doing this because we can't even get a freaking dislike button out of
Right.
Zuckerberg.
But that's why I brought up the ubiquity of the platform and the devices. So if that Uber platform, like if that API became something that other businesses wanted to adopt, and then the data from your Uber profile carried along to other company X who's using that API, then all of a sudden, if that starts to multiply out, then you're starting to get that ubiquity of platform without the device.
Okay.
But I look at Apple as being like encroaching on that whole ubiquity of device thing too.
So let's say Uber. I mean, Uber's pretty popular, but it's a fairly niche. I mean, it's a very expensive niche market. But if somebody wanted to then tap into the Uber API, because Facebook has 2 billion users, so you can kind of almost log into anything with Facebook. That's kind of a consequence of that. Well, if Uber ever attains that, since they have the two-way system, the question is okay, if Uber lets you log in via Uber, and now by association, somebody can get your rating.
That's what I'm saying. If that starts to multiply out because people are sharing that rating data, and then that rating becomes aggregate over multiple systems, then we're getting very close to Nosedive.
So is that even a problem until somebody uses that rating on the consuming side? So Bob, I see you've got a 2.3 rating here, and so I'm not going to extend you a line of credit. Now, it's possible that could happen, but we don't know that there's been anything like that. But what you're feeling on that's going to happen
within our lifetime.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. So do you think a credit score will be more than just finance at some point then in the very or somewhat future?
Yes, because there's already groups of individuals, or not groups of individuals, but there's already organizations that are saying that your credit score actually should be more than just your number, because you are an accumulation. See, like this is the whole slippery slope. You're an accumulation of all your years. So if you screw your credit up when you're 20, and you become a better person. So now all of a sudden we're creating this hypothetical of becoming a better person. Eventually someone's going to say, well, we should be able to actually attach a number to that.
So
your credit rating is a 620, but your people rating is a 3.2. So there's a multiplier that goes on top of that 620. And actually we're going to say your credit score is a 710.
So yeah, if Pete Duncanson were here, he might appreciate.
Put a
pin down, and I'll probably forget what it means. But I have two thoughts, so let me try to say one, and we'll come back to this one. So your credit score currently does have some social stuff to it, right? Because there is a section for judgments against you. I don't know if that's just financial judgments.
Those are financial judgments, yeah.
Okay, well, so much for that. And then secondly, okay, I guess I'm doing the pins all wrong. So Pete would not appreciate this. There will be in the future either Experian, TransUnion, or whatever the other one is. Either they will add social to their their record on you, a social tab, so to speak, or there will be a rise potentially of organizations that just do the social element, and then Experian will still do the
Well, you
finance.
saw in this episode, there is a consulting group that helps just with their raising of their social score, which of course cascades into financial opportunity, better living standard, better vehicles, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, they touched on that in the episode too. I totally could see that coming.
So zero sum game. So can we all be fives?
No, just like in real life. One of my arguments, this whole thing is we're already here. We just have smaller, it's not universal. So there's smaller groups. Within groups, there's totally this pecking order.
And so China's
where there's fives and zeros.
China's attempting to do this. And so here in the year 2018, the year of our Lord, we still have social friction. We have racism. We have all kinds of stuff, still somehow, some way, we still have all that stuff. That will ultimately probably leak into that, just like it does in every other aspect of life. So that's yeah, that's
the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge will be the universality. So I could see it happening much more in pockets. So it's almost, you have that social flighting within an already existing social strata anyway. So I mean, I don't think it's going to cross over, because when you put all people in, then you will have this, like, you'll have these hard lines between what a two smells like, walks like, talks like, all those weird things that come in the people part of that. So it's going to take a while for it to be, God, I hope it takes forever for it to be universal, but it's already happening in the different striations that we're in. It happens to us. Look, we have, we talk about this all the time. How many likes and follows do we have on this silly little YouTube thing?
Not enough, I can tell you that much.
Exactly. So the fact that we look at that and we care about that, and sometimes it impacts our emotional well-being, we're already part of the system.
All right, is 5 a 1 or a 5 enough? I mean, because like if you rate something on Amazon, you can't pick 0, so you're at least a 1.
I would say a 5-point scale from my personal experience is way better than a 4-point scale.
Well, contrast that against finances. A perfect credit score, depending on your agency, is what, 850 or something like that. That's a big striation there, or gamut, that you could run.
Really, yeah. And when you think about it, that it should be a bigger scale, because it's a much bigger like calculation and risk with finances. So maybe your life metric should be maybe based on a 0 to 1,000.
So then do people start pulling in, well, what degrees do you have? What degrees don't you have? What was your high school GPA? What was your college GPA? And then we start getting into, well, how are you valuing somebody who went to college versus didn't? Because the guy or gal who didn't go to college might be earning. I mean, who decides all of this?
This is where I would love for Black Mirror to make an effort to go back and fill in some gaps in time, like revisit certain episodes. And this one be a good one as well. Revisit it and say, like, how did we get to this universal 5-star rating system? Just to clue us in, like where the slip was.
Well, let me contrast that slightly. I think part of the mystery of these shows is leaving these gaps, is not filling in the blanks, is letting Bob and Kevin go, well, you know what? And so, yeah.
But I want to know.
Well, imagination, Bob.
I've already imagined it. I don't think we fixed it, but I want to see what the writers think. Also, shoot, I had this up earlier. The writers on this, Rashida Jones, who I believe, was in Parks and Rec. She was one of the writers for this episode.
Interesting.
So that is crazy.
Yes. I was trying to explain what Black Mirror is to my wife, and if you don't know, it's a rotating cast, probably a rotating group of writers, and it's just dark technology. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. How would you explain it, Bob?
Oh, hang on. The other guy that wrote this was Mose in The Office. Dwight's brother is the other writer. So two actors / actresses from comedic roles wrote that episode. Holy cow. I'm sorry. So I was looking that up because I thought it was two comics that did it. The question was,
how would you describe Black Mirror as a series to someone who's never watched it?
I read someone say like the Black Mirror is the representative of the dark screens, like dark technology screens are basically black mirrors. And so basically it's where technology becomes dark is the whole series is about technology becoming dark.
That's a good way to describe it. So what else you got on your punch list there, sir?
I think I got them all.
So, is there any other episodes you want to kind of recommend? Because I watched the B one now after we did the Morality of AI, which is another episode.
Totally recommend that one. There's another one about military technology. I think most of these are in season 3.
I watched that one. Maybe that's another good topic we can talk about.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of these are, technologies that change the way we perceive the world. So,
Bob, I want you to tell everyone how they can get a 5-star Bob and Kevin rating.
I think you get a 5-star Bob and Kevin rating by clicking that subscribe button and clicking the bell. Leave a comment. I give you 2 5-star ratings.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So without further ado, I guess we just need to thank everyone for watching. Make sure you subscribe. And we have one more order of business, Bob.
Bring the 5-star lightning. Today's 5-star lightning brought to you by